Welcome to the EchoCast, episode 147. Easy is okay. I am Morgan, aka Bond Diesel, and this is a podcast about gaming, gaming news, gaming platforms, and technology from the perspective of a lifelong nerd and now father. Please take a moment to subscribe to and rate the EchoCast on whatever platform you are listening to it on. Comments on YouTube, retweets on Twitter, and iTunes reviews help the most. Also, be sure to let me know if you have any questions or topics for the next show by replying on Twitter, in the YouTube comments, or by becoming a patron. Thank you to this month's Patreon supporters: Hassan, Christian, Darren, Tim, PK, Man-Made Golf, Lunchbox, and Dale. If you would like to support this podcast and my other content, please check out patreon.com/BondDiesel. This episode, we will talk about the new Elgato products, a Division audiobook, game difficulty gatekeeping on the internet, Company of Heroes 3, listener questions, content updates, and more. Jumping right into it. Elgato had a big event, a big live stream. Honestly, it was a lot bigger than I was expecting. There were a bunch of creators, hashtag Elgato partner, that were hyping this up for a few days before it happened. It was pretty obvious they were putting out a camera, and I had high hopes and low hopes, and let me explain. So I have a weird thing with Elgato. So I think Elgato makes nice, solid products. My issue is I think that they consistently overprice them by about 30%, if not more. Now, it's hard to argue with some of it, because with some of it, they're like the only ones who do it, and they do it well. So I assume at this point there's a competitor for this, but for a long time, they were the only company that had a drop down or pop-up green screen. So you could literally like lay this green screen behind you, pull it up, and it had like arms that supported it, this like X frame thing. And then when you're done, you can fold it down, put it away. And for people who have a streaming setup that like is in a room that's also used for other things, like myself, I use our spare bedroom, and things like that. You know, it's really useful. The things like Cam Link and a bunch of other stuff they do, even their capture cards, their software is good. You know, their hardware is good. It's just everything is just a little too expensive. Like they have LED like key lights, and they're really, really expensive, but they seem pretty good. This was the case before they were purchased by Corsair. It definitely doesn't seem to be stopping now that they are owned by Corsair, though. So I always kind of take a little pot shot, but at the same time, I have a Wave 3 mic. I have a Elgato 4K 60 FPS capture card. You know, so I obviously can't completely say I practice what I preach, because now, to be fair, the Elgato mic I got from selling a bunch of stuff, and I got it on pretty significant discount. And the 4K capture card I actually got from Walmart. They had an open box deal that was like basically impossible to not jump on. So maybe I'm the budget Elgato user. So anyways, they had a big event. There was teasing of a camera, but they had a lot of announcements, and I'll kind of cover the big ones. So the big one was the one that was, I think, mostly expected. It's a camera, is a webcam. So this one is kind of weird. It seems like it's like a very advanced webcam, but I don't really see what it does that much better than like a 5-year-old LG, or a Logitech 920. Obviously, I'm sure it does some things better, but the big things I was thinking about was like focus and things like that. So like the bokeh effect where it's like blurry in the background, and then the streamer is clear, is really popular. And you have to use a DSLR camera setup, and kind of a special lens to do that. There are software solutions if you want that look now. Zoom does it. There's also other filters and things that you can use other software to do it. um the headliner of this Elgato event was this camera, and honestly, I found the camera to be insanely underwhelming. It's $200. It's probably way too expensive. I just don't. I don't know. I don't get the camera. I don't think it is worth that much money. Not even close. But people will buy it, and that's fine. On the other hand, their, in my opinion, their premiere announcement were two new mic arms. And if you've ever seen, I think Blue, the Blue Mic company, makes this like really nice, very high end mic stand that's very expensive. The most popular, or at least the one I see people talk about the most, is the Rode PSA 1. I actually had one of those and sold it. I did not like it. Maybe it was just the one I got. It was very squeaky. I don't really think it looked all that great. And what ended up happening is I found there's basically a PSA 1 clone on Amazon, and I have it, and it's like $30 and it's better. It's 60% cheaper, and I found it to be everything the PSA 1 was supposed to be. And it doesn't squeak, and it does. It's excellent. I really, really like it. But these two mic arms, Elgato announced, there's two of them. There's a regular one, a big arm type boom, that is static. It has the nice little joints and all those things. Obviously the universal connection, things like that. But then they have one that I'm actually interested in, is the low profile, and it's meant to actually swing like under your monitor. So when you're using it, you swing it out and up and you talk. It stays kind of on a low line sight, but still where you can still type and do the things you need to do. But it's meant to stay low, which would work on my setup perfectly, because I have my two 28-inch monitors on top of like laptop stands, basically. So they sit fairly high up. I have my chair kind of elevated, things like that. And they're $100, which is the same price as the PSA 1. And I believe a fair bit cheaper than the Blue Mic stand. So those, as much as I like to give Elgato crap about their pricing, I think those two mic arms look very reasonably priced for all things considered. So yeah, so check that out if you're looking for a mic arm in the $100 range. There's an XLR device as well. The really cool part about that is this Wave 3 mic that I have from them has this really neat capacitive touch mute that doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal if I ever stream again. But even for me, I've actually been using this setup a lot for Zoom calls for work. I'm training new employees from home for the most part, and having a nice setup has really helped with that. And being able to, like, if my kid busts through the door and starts yelling at me, I can tap the top of that mic and it's muted. That's been really nice in general, even for this podcast. And what this new XLR device does, big yawn, was the XLR device has that, it's capacitive touch. So on the mic, you just tap the top of the mic and it works. On this XLR device, I believe you just tap the front of the device and it will mute. It has the same functionality. It lets you control volume, balance, things like that as well. It looks nice. I prefer USB mics, so it is of no use to me, but the XLR device looks nice. And then of course, they've come out with a new Stream Deck. That's fine. I actually personally prefer, I basically use my numpad on my keyboard as my Stream Deck, and it works perfectly fine. Obviously, these Stream Decks, the real ones, are pretty customizable, and you can do more complicated things with them. It's just, they're very expensive, in my opinion, for what they are. But the people kind of live or die by them. Not everyone is gifted them as a hashtag Twitch, or no, hashtag Elgato partner. Even though I feel like a lot of people are. If that's your jam, there's a new one. It looks like they have a bunch of new functionality in it. Go nuts. But there's a few other random things they showed, but those are the big ones. But those mic arms, man, those definitely impressed me. And they're like the one item I think Elgato sells that I think is priced appropriately. So yeah, check those out. I may as well. We will see. I mean, the mic arm I have now is great, so I probably don't really need another one. So we'll probably not go ahead and earn the doghouse for that. The next big news is this week the Division Hearts on Fire audio book came out. I've only listened to, I think, the first episode, or maybe a little bit of the second episode. It's about 5 or 6 hours long. I believe it's 5 or 6 episodes. And so far it's great. There's definitely a few random things. I'm not going to spoil anything big. I'm not far enough along, I think, to spoil anything. So it's pretty good. What I like about it is, a long time ago I typed up a big long story that talked about the recruitment. It was kind of a fan fiction thing, the recruitment of an agent and training, and the virus being spread and the agent being activated, only to reveal at the very end of the story that we actually weren't following an agent being recruited, but we were following a hunter being recruited, and then him stalking and taking out his prey. So I definitely get vibes of that from this audiobook, in a good way. I don't think that they stole my idea. I think it's a pretty generic idea. I'm sure they had some very good writers come up with it on their own, but it's cool. It's kind of a prequel. It follows two sisters. One of them is recruited to be a division agent. The other one, it hasn't been revealed yet, and this may be spoilery a little bit, but it should be pretty obvious. The other one is a trash collector in New York City. So if you have played the first and or the second game of Division, you should know where that is going. But I'm only a little bit into it. There's definitely some confusing stuff. There's a few cringy lines here and there. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm in the part of the story now where the agents are being activated because of the dollar flu, and things are kind of starting to hit the fan a little bit. And I will say a super hype moment. And again, this is in like the first episode, so it shouldn't be a spoiler, but the first time you hear Isaac come up is pretty dope. It is really cool. There's just something about it to hear these, like, because these voice actors, one of them is from The Last of Us 2. The other one is from, well, she does a ton of stuff, but the thing that most recently she's done is she's Bo-Katan on The Mandalorian, and she is awesome. Their voice acting is extremely good. I could listen to them all day. It's very compelling. So I highly suggest it. It's on Audible. I was able to get a 30-day free trial, I guess, as an Amazon Prime member. I'm gonna delete it after the 30 days because I don't want to get charged. This is the only thing I'm gonna listen to. So that might be an option for you. At the same time, they also announced that there is a release in the United States, or maybe some other places as well, of the Remission prequel comic book, or I don't really know how to describe it. It's one of those, a graphic novel, I believe. And what's interesting is that this was released in other markets before Division 2 even came out, I believe, which makes sense because it's a prequel. And why they wouldn't have released it here doesn't really make any sense. But I know I saw Agent Mab on Twitter saying that this had been released in France like years ago. So it looks like we're getting a North American release of this. Looks cool. Mab seemed to feel like it was a good read. I've already pre-ordered mine. You can pre-order it on Amazon if you're looking to do it. While I'm on a bit of a hiatus from the franchise as I stew about how terribly I think Ubisoft is handling their Star franchises. I am still really interested and I'm still really excited for anything. There was a discussion going on recently about Heartland and whatever the Division 2 DLC is coming. And it's weird. I have to be kind of quiet about what I say about Heartland for reasons that should be fairly obvious. I'm a little worried for no reason that's informed. It's literally purely speculation. I don't. It's just weird. It's weird that it's so quiet. Now, to be fair, it's also worth keeping in mind right now, most of the massive employees, who I believe are still running a lot of the PR and stuff for Division 2, and obviously like Yannick and stuff are in charge of this DLC. It's worth, they're on vacation. They're on their summer break for in Sweden. I don't really know. Obviously, it doesn't impact Heartland. That's kind of radio silent right now. We don't know anything. There is the slightest inkling to me, if I have to be totally honest, that I'm worried that the Division 2 DLC might get canceled, that they may not end up going through with it. So I very much hope that speculation is very incorrect. I have no reason to believe that besides just how weirdly quiet it is. And then with Heartland, I don't know. I genuinely have no idea what's going on with that game. So, but maybe we'll get this first person shooter that's inspired, that has Division villains in it, and we get to fight wolves from Ghost Recon, which are like the worst characters in all of Tom Clancy, and upper echelon or whatever, from Splinter Cell. I don't know. I don't. Maybe that game comes out before Heartland or Division 2 DLC. Who knows? Or maybe a mobile game. I don't know. My bitterness is showing though, so I guess I'll move on. There was a big discussion going on this week about game difficulty, for various reasons. It's been kind of an ongoing conversation the last couple of years, but Psychonauts 2, they kind of tweeted out, I believe the Xbox account tweeted something like beating the game on easy is still beating the game or something like that. And Psychonauts 2, either it was a Tim Schafer or the official account tweeted out something like beating Psychonauts 2 on invincible mode is still beating Psychonauts 2, and that started a discussion about game difficulty and stuff. So there's two layers to that conversation, in my opinion. The first layer is that accessibility options, especially in single player games, are essential. You've got people with severe vision difficulties or impairments, hearing impairments, even intellectual impairments and things like that. If Call of Duty introduced in multiplayer a headshot helper, there would be a discussion to have about that not being cool, right? But that's not what's happening here. We're talking about single player games like Psychonauts, and we're talking about making games more accessible to more people. A victory for one person is a victory for all when it comes to accessibility. So just because you want to play Psychonauts 2 on the highest difficulty and beat it doesn't mean that someone else who will not impact your experience even in the slightest bit shouldn't be able to use codes, whether they have some kind of disability that makes it harder for them to beat games or enjoy games, or if they just have trouble, they just aren't very good at games, but if they still want to experience those stories, there shouldn't be anything wrong with that. So there's kind of the two stances, or the kind of the two factors of people who are, have a disability or some type of impairment, who need the accessibility options that way, or people who just aren't good or just don't want to feel not to feel challenged, who don't want to be frustrated, who just want to experience the game for what it is. There's all this gatekeeping going on about it, and it's just such a bad it's such a bad discussion. Myself, I almost always play single player games on a normal or easy mode because, in my experience, basically every game I've ever played where there's difficulty levels, Mass Effect is the most recent one where it's a big deal to go through Mass Effect and beat all of them on the hardest difficulty. And when I dabbled into it, it literally just boosts the HP on all the enemies. That's not a compelling reason to have to slog through a game. If it made the AI smarter, if it made game mechanics more difficult, if it made the game feel different, if it was a deeper experience of challenge, then I think, you know, that would be great. I just don't understand why anyone would have an issue with other people playing that game in a way that's going to work for them. But I don't know, to wrap this thing up, it's just let people play the games the way they want to. It's such a silly thing to get weird about and to try to tell other people how they should feel or what they should do. Easy mode's okay. Back off. The next bit of news is more honestly kind of a personal thing because I doubt it's going to be that big of a deal for many people, but Company of Heroes 3 got announced. So Company of Heroes 2 was one of my favorite games when it came out. I played too much of it. I played a ton of it. And then kind of fell off once I realized I couldn't really compete in the the PvP part of it. But yeah, so Company of Heroes 3 was announced. It's kind of interesting that I thought maybe they would take a step forward into future conflict. Company of Heroes is kind of a strategic real-time strategy World War II game. It's a very heavy, lots of emphasis on putting units into cover or concealment. It's not like an Age of Empires or a Command and Conquer where it's like building lots of units and clicks per second and stuff like that. Even though there is some of the the efficiency stuff going on, but it's much more of like a strategy, real-time strategy, which seems redundant, but if you've played it, I think you will understand. So Company of Heroes 3 was announced. It looks like it's going to be like a technological jump from the last game, and that it's Company of Heroes and Company of Heroes 2 took place in like the Western Front, Germany versus the Allies, so on and so forth, and the Soviets, and Company of Heroes 2. And then this one looks like it's going to take place in like Italy, Africa. I suspect they may also do some Western Front stuff, but yeah, we'll have to see. It's a cool game. It's really cool. They actually have a pre-alpha build out right now. I tried to play it. It's pretty rough. I kind of decided I may wait until that game is in like a beta situation or until it comes out. I don't think they put out a release date. I suspect with the pre-alpha testing, they're probably 6 months to a year away is my guess. If not more, due to COVID, who knows? So yeah, there's that. So if you're in the Company of Heroes, check that out. It looks great. It's such a cool game, and very cool cinematics and things like that as well. And it looks good. Company of Heroes 2 still holds up really well. That game is weird because you can play against AI, which is what I prefer, and they have story, and the stories are solid. They're very good. And the AI fights are just tough because I feel like no matter, you can pick the difficulties of the enemies, and I feel like one setting you just curb stomp them, and then the next setting they do it to you. Like there's no like fine tuning of the AI, so it can be a little difficult, but it's a lot of fun. Check out Company of Heroes. Next up here is, I just want to do a quick little thought bubble here. of the Bear Dynamic DT 990 Pro headphones. So basically, I was running like three sets of headphones at one point. I had one open back set of Audio Technicas. I had the Logitech G Pros for like my gaming headphones. The open backs I used when I needed to be able to hear outside of my headphones. If my daughter was taking a nap, or if I was watching her on my own and she was sleeping or something like that, so I could hear what was going on. And then I had another set. I just didn't use it all. So I sold all of those and used that money to buy these Bear Dynamics. If you're a Division fan, you will know these as the headphones that you've probably seen or that you saw Hamish wearing, with the little gray cushions on the ears. So they are extremely nice. They're light on the head. They aren't too heavy. I saw some reviews say that if you've got a bigger noggin, they can feel a bit tight until they wear in. I haven't noticed that at all. I've been very pleased with the way that it feels on my head, and I have a pretty gigantic head. So if they're comfortable on me, I suspect most people would enjoy them. I did get the 250 ohm version. That may have been a mistake. So the more ohms, the more power they need. So when I first got them, I ordered a USB DAC with them, hoping that would power them. It did not. So I had to return that. And I bought a Creative Labs Audigy FX sound card. And it's doing the job. I suspect if I had an external amplifier or something, they would be much better powered. But basically, if I turn these up to 75 or 80 on the sound percentage, it's way louder than I can handle. So that's good enough for me. This Audigy card is, I think, legit like 8 or 9 years old, but they still are putting out drivers for it as recently as a few months ago. And it's great. The software is hilarious. It's old. But basically what you do with the software is you turn everything off and you just let the headphones do the work. So yeah, they're great. I listen to a lot of music while I'm playing games or while I'm working. I'm still doing a lot of working from home, and it has been nice. It's been really good, and they're open back. So my whole deal, the reason I got these was I wanted some really high quality studio headphones that were open back, so that if I need to listen to my daughter, or if my wife comes into the room and talks to me, I don't have to take off my headphones and ask her to say what she said again. I can just hear. It's great. They do have some sound bleed, but not very much, especially if you're listening at like reasonable volumes. You shouldn't bother those around you. If you have your computer set up or your gaming set up in the bedroom where someone else is sleeping, maybe then it could be an issue, but I doubt it. So they're great. They're really nice. I have no downsides yet. The cord was a bit short for my application. It's a coiled cord, which I know some people like, some people don't. I personally don't care for it. I think it's like a 6-foot cord that comes with it. So I bought a 10-foot extension, and I am good to go. So I've been playing lots of Tarkov with them. They have great surround sound. Very crisp. It definitely helps. I'm still garbage at that game, but these have given me just a hair of an edge that almost makes me decent. So if you're looking for a nice set of headphones, I highly suggest the Bear Dynamic DT 990 Pros. There were a couple options. There's the Philips set that were like half the price that have gotten really good reviews. I really wanted the open back, and I really wanted the quality. The only thing I would do different now would probably do the 80 ohm version, which may not sound quite as good, but will still be really good, and wouldn't need an external power source. I have a whole sound card in my PC now, which I didn't before. And while I enjoy it, and I'm glad I have it, it's nice. It probably wouldn't have been necessary with the 80 ohm. So if you're looking to have headphones that you mostly listen off of a laptop or a MP3 player, if you still own one of those for some reason, or your phone, do the 80 ohm version, do the lower power ones. They'll sound great. still. If you want a nice setup on your PC and you have a space for an amp or for a nice USB DAC, or you can install a sound card into your computer, go for that 250. I think there's even like a 500 ohm version. You would need like a legit setup to use those. So you shouldn't be plugging those into a 8-year-old sound card. The last little bit here is upcoming games. So the first game that's coming that I'm excited about is Microsoft Flight Simulator. Comes out here pretty soon, about a week and a half. I mean, that game got great reviews for the PC. They've done a bunch of changes to make it like fit on the Xbox hard drive to not be too ridiculous, and some other stuff. I'm really excited to play it. It looks like a fun, chill game. That would be an interesting one to stream, to get kind of just take off, head towards a place, and then chat, and then maybe look at some cool sites, take some chat requests on where to go look and things like that. That actually could be lots of fun. So be on the lookout for that. The Ascent comes out 2 days later. That's a game I've been looking forward to since I first saw it. So I am highly, very, very excited to see that. And I can't wait for that to come out. I'm not really typically into the twin stick shooter thing, but the fact that it's like an RPG and that there's some story behind it and the graphics are just ridiculous on it, that's when I definitely can't wait to play. Definitely want to do some videos on it. Definitely want to stream it. That's the game I've basically been marking as my return to streaming. So between that and some other stuff, I'm definitely excited for that to come out. And yeah, be on the lookout for those streams. The next one after that I'm curious about is Psychonauts 2 in August. Most of the games I'm interested in are coming out like October, November, December-ish. But Psychonauts, I never played the first one. It's almost universally heralded for being great. It's just, I looked at it, I even downloaded it, and I'm like, nah, I need like a remaster or something. I just really struggle. I feel like if I played Psychonauts back when it came out and then went back to play it again, it'd be fine. But never playing it before, it's just so hard to like take my brain back to when a game like that was modern and enjoy it. It's just so much of the quality of life stuff just isn't there. So yeah, I'm excited about the second one though. I've been trying to kind of brush up on some videos and things like that to see if I can kind of catch up on the story, know what I'm getting into, and yeah. So be on the lookout for that. That comes out on August 25th. All three of those are on Game Pass because be shilling. We do have one listener question. Well, there's two questions from one person. Master Prime on Twitter says, can Cyberpunk 2077 improve like No Man's Sky has? I think the long and the short of it is no. The problem with No Man's Sky was that came from a new studio, someone who was a bit too ambitious and a bit too willing to let other people say things and be like, yeah, sure, we're going to do that. Instead of, being like, oh no, that's not in our plan right now. We're nowhere near something like that. The thing about No Man's Sky is it's almost like a Destiny or like a Warframe situation where No Man's Sky, is it Hello Games, is made by a company that is their game. That is the game. And that game came out and it sucked. It wasn't good. And then it got better and better. And now it's a game I've tried to get back into. I still don't think it's very approachable for a new person, but it's undeniable that they've, fulfilled, I believe, like every promise they ever made about that game before it came out. And then like 10 times more. That can only be done, I think, if the dev is truly dedicated to it and is willing to grind, knowing that there's a chance it won't pay off. And CDPR is not going to do that. That is not their style. They are moving on to Witcher 4. That is what's happening with CDPR right now. It is full ahead on Witcher 4. I guarantee it. Now, obviously, they've been putting out patches for 2077. I'm sure they still have a sizable team working on Cyberpunk. They're supposed to still be working on DLC and things like that. But they would need, the problem with Cyberpunk with me from what I noticed, is that I didn't care about the bugs. I mean, yeah, the bugs looked really bad, but bugs get fixed. I'm a Division fan. See, I get it. The problem with Cyberpunk for me was that Cyberpunk was a game that should have been a linear story game, because the main story and even some of the side stories, I haven't played Cyberpunk, but I've watched it get played through like 5 times, because I'm very interested in that game, in that world. But my issue is that if once you get past the characters and the main stories, it's very shallow. It's extremely shallow. The world is shallow. You can just tell it's just like a bunch of mannequins walking around. Where you play a game like Red Dead, or especially Red Dead Redemption 2, or you play a game like Grand Theft Auto 5, or you play a game like some of these other, even like Skyrim and stuff, and those games have depth because it feels like you're in a world that exists, not just because you exist, and you are in that world. Cyberpunk, it just, it's so much of the AI, that so many of the mechanics and systems are just missing from that game. And the problem is that they can fix the bugs in that game till high heaven, and that's awesome. That they should, but they would almost have to reconstruct the game from scratch in a multitude of ways to make that game fulfill the promise of being, and maybe they never actually made this promise, but it sure felt implied that this was going to be like the next RPG, the next, like, this will be the new standard for RPGs. And it's literally become the opposite. There's obviously some stuff about Cyberpunk that other games are going to aspire to and go for. The relationships, the storytelling, things like that. The sex scenes, I guess Mass Effect is gonna come take back that throne. I guess you can't beat tank sex, right? Not only that, but intertwined brain tanks. I don't know, whatever. It's just they would have to drop everything and only focus on Cyberpunk for another like 2 or 3 years, I think. And I don't think they're gonna do that. I just don't. So, and they don't probably have to, because if they put out Witcher 4 in 3 years, everyone's gonna forget about Cyberpunk. They might be like, oh man, yeah, that game didn't come out very well, so now it's Witcher 3 or 4 time. They know that while they should, and they are going to probably fix up Cyberpunk quite a bit and add some new content, they know that all they need to do is release Witcher 4 and it will be fine. So yeah. The second part of Master Prime's question here: what is the future of gaming with new aimbot for console and cheaters in general? So I actually had to do a little research on this question, because I had no idea what you were talking about. And sure enough, there's a bunch of stories right now about someone who put out some cheats that work on consoles, so PlayStation and Xbox, as well as PC. So it basically looks like it gives you a little bit of everything. And it looks like it's confirmed that it does work on all platforms. So it's aimbot, being able to shoot through and see through walls, things like that. And the speculation from some of the articles I saw about it is saying that they think it's some type of machine learning program that doesn't have to run through the system necessarily. I don't know. I didn't really fully understand what I was reading. I'm a little dumb. So it is interesting. What do I think it means? I think it means that, this cheater dev thing is such a mouse and cat game. It's, the devs will get a hold of the program and they'll use it and they'll be like, oh, it's doing this to do that. Let's change this and it'll stop that. And then the developer of the cheat will figure out how to, usurp their change, and they'll go back and forth. Console gamers for the most part have been able to avoid those type of things. But at the end of the day, the Xbox, the PlayStation, it's just a computer. I mean, it's all it is. It's a proprietary computer. And it's not that surprising to me, especially with kind of unique new tech, like programs that use machine learning and things that might be able to get around some of the typical anti-cheat features. It probably just means that devs and anti-cheat companies are going to have to innovate and figure out how to get around this new challenge. So It's a bummer that you hate to see it. Hopefully, with things like kill cams and stuff like that in a lot of competitive games, it's typically pretty obvious when someone's using one of these programs. So hopefully, with reporting and recorded gameplay and stuff like that, unfortunately, it may be a bit of a crowdsourcing thing, to figure out how to stop cheaters. At the end of the day, though, if I can promise you all anything, there will always be cheaters and there will always be devs trying to fight them. So that's not going away anytime soon, I promise. Okay, so with some content updates, like I was saying before, I've been saying this, I feel like for months, I do want to start streaming again. The plan was always, towards the end of, the Bay Diesel's summer. I know summer just began, but her summer ends in the middle of August. So she goes back to teaching. So my goal has always been towards the end of July or early August to start getting back into things. I just, to be straight up, listenership on the podcast is about half of what it was 2 or 3 months ago. I assume that's due to a change in format. I'm still going to talk division stuff. I know that's, I did today. I hope Heartland coming out later this summer, maybe fall. Division 2 content coming out this winter is my guess. I'll obviously getting back into division stuff at that time and updating on that community and news. So I'm sure we'll see an uptick in listenership then. But as I see it start to fall, that may mean that maybe instead of an episode every week, I do every other and spend that time doing a podcast or a video or a stream is what I meant, not a podcast. The other idea I have is I may kind of do a little poking around to, try to get some guests or maybe even a permanent co-host and to try to do something that may liven up or freshen up the stream or the podcast a bit. We will see. When it comes to streaming, though, I do want to stream The Ascent. I do want to stream Flight Sim, Psychonauts 2. I would love to stream Tarkov. And I may. It's just the problem is with Tarkov, either I try hard, real hard, and don't pay attention to chat, and it ends up just being you staring at my mouth agape. Or I spend way too much time between raids talking and end up doing like 2 raids over a 2-hour stream. And, I don't know. I mean, if you like that, then that's fine. I'll do it. But it's not a very efficient use of my time. So yeah, we'll see about that. We do have episode 150 coming up. We are also approaching the 100,000 listener mark, which is pretty dope. That's pretty cool. I don't think they're going to hit at the same time. I suspect that it's going to be another 15 or 20 episodes before we hit 100,000. But for 150, I do want to try to do something special, a giveaway stream, maybe a live recording, maybe a guest. There is a well-known and mostly well-liked division or former division dev who had inquired about possibly being on. So maybe episode 150 would be a good opportunity for that. Maybe since they're not working on the game anymore, they can spill some real juicy stuff. We'll have to wait and see. So if you have any ideas for episode 150, please let me know. You can DM me on Twitter. You can leave comments in the YouTube, or you can just, I don't know, figure out a way to get at me. And that's it. So I am Bon Diesel on Twitch, where I promise I will stream eventually. It's twitch.tv/Bon Diesel. I am doing an Extra Life 2021 campaign. I believe we're at $500. If you would like to participate in that and help me boost up that cash for sick kids, please check out extralife.org/participant/Bon Diesel. You can probably just search for me on there. You can check out my Twitter at Bon Diesel, or if you just want gaming news and retweets, check out at the EchoCast. If you want some cool EchoCast or Bon Diesel merch, please check out streamlabs.com/Bon Diesel. I have a cool new shirt on there. It says White Knights have more fun, I think. So, get one of those shirts. They're pretty dope. And that's all I have. So, until next time.